The king's back. 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 The king's back.
Yeah, what's up? What's good? What's happening? Welcome to Wake Up with the Actual King Smith. Today is Tuesday, November the 11th. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, but from my vantage point, what I'm looking at, everything is going right as it needs to. Hope y'all are having a great day today. Got a couple of things that I want to cover, and I'm just going to jump right into it. The first thing, there was some talk about a 50-year mortgage, and some people with common sense understood why that can't work. Or I'm going to not say why it can't work, why you shouldn't take that deal. But I wanted to explain the mathematics, if you will, behind it so that folks can understand why you should not even consider taking a look at a 50-year mortgage. And let's understand the math behind it. So let's just jump right into it. Let me get this up on the screen here. First of all, got to do a little bit of editing to make this thing work out. We get this up on the screen. Hold on. Let's see. Let's do it this way.
I can't do it. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
All right, there it is. So the 50-year mortgage, and I wish I would have had a whole PowerPoint thing set out for it, but the way that a 50-year mortgage would work, you see most traditional mortgages and the loan repayment schedule that people take out today, the standard now is a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And there's different type of mortgage loans out there, but most that you see people take today, those that don't pay cash, because people that have that kind of capital, they'll go in and just pay cash for a property. You'll get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage loan. But instead of paying pay it over 30 years, which is 360 months, a 50-year mortgage rate is paid over 600 months. Now, the reason why that's insane, because some people are saying, well, if I could save a couple of $100 on my mortgage, that'll be great. Yeah, but the total interest that you're going to end up paying over the life of a 50-year mortgage payment instead of a 30-year is significantly higher. It could damn near be double. So I've got this hypothetical scenario that's set up that explains why you should not take a 50-year mortgage. I don't care if you're saying, well, I'm 20 years old and I know I'm going to like live in this house for my entire life. No, you don't know that. You don't know that. But if you were to take out a 30-year loan on a $400,000 home, and where I live at in Maryland, $400,000 is kind of like on the low end. But let's say you have a 6.5% interest rate on a 30-year loan, just factoring in principal and interest, and we're not including insurance or anything like that, and tax, you're going to be paying roughly around $2,500 on a 30-year loan. And the total interest that's paid over that loan's life cycle is around $510,000. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. Comparatively to a 50-year loan that's going to carry a little bit higher interest rate because it's called a risk premium. So you're going to have a higher risk premium that you're going to get charged for that loan because of how long it is. Your monthly payment, which is just, again, principal and interest, is going to be a couple of $100 lower. Estimate around $2,300 versus $2,500, right? So you said, oh man, that's the extra $200 in my pocket. But you're thinking about that wrong. Because while that's true, the total interest that you're going to pay over that long in a scenario where, let's say, the interest rate's around 7%, instead of the 6.5, you got a little bit of higher risk premium. You got a 7% interest on a 50-year mortgage loan that you're paying back over 600 months. The total interest that you're going to pay on that loan is around $1 million. Think about that. That's the interest that you're going to pay on a $400,000 loan versus the $510,000 of interest, which is half of the interest that you're paying on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage over the life of that loan. So while you're saving roughly, let's say about I think the math turns out to be about $150 a month, you're paying an additional $500,000 over the life of that loan. That right there itself, that math baffles me when you think about it. Just like people that are paying 10 years for a car payment now. I don't understand that. I don't understand why somebody would actually do that. It makes no sense. Let's create a scenario and why it would work. For some people that don't necessarily have the high income, it will save a couple $100 a month. And it could mean the difference between being approved for a loan or being rejected for a loan, as it'll help lower your debt to income ratio. And it provides you a better cash flow option. But what you're going to do with that cash flow is going to matter. You can say, well, this gives me an easier path to home ownership. But I'm going to ask, are you really truly going to ever own that home? Maybe it's because of my profession and what I did, where I was in the military and did a lot of moving from ages 19 through when I got out of the military when I was close to 30. I didn't see a lot of young people staying put and being in one location. Like, who is this 50-year loan option going to be marketed to? Your 20-year-old person, unless they're coming out of trade school or college making mad bank, they're not looking at a $400,000 home. They can't afford a $400,000 home. Whether it's a 50-year mortgage, 30-year mortgage, whatever, they're just not going to be able to afford it, not by themselves. Now, if you want to look at a scenario in which two people come together, even if they were to get a 15-year mortgage loan, two 20-some-year-old people that come to some kind of business arrangement, I can see that working, but not at a 50-year. Not at a 50-year. If you're looking at some type of a business decision where you come together with somebody and you purchase some property, that can work. That's really the only pro to doing a 50-year mortgage. It's the only one. To me, it's the only one that makes sense. But if y'all out there have something else that you could add to that, go ahead and add to it, because I don't get it. Everything else about it is a huge con. The first 15 to 20 years roughly, and I haven't looked at the math fully on this one. Maybe it's the first 10 to 15 years and not 15 to 20 years. You're making almost interest-only payments, and you're bringing nothing down towards the principal of that loan. You're not really building equity, or if you are, you're building it slow. You can't turn around and sell that house not within the first 7 to 10 years, because you're likely going to owe the same amount that you originally borrowed. So you can say bye-bye equity, or at least you're not going to gain any equity on it anytime soon. If the home value drops even just a little bit, you're going to be underwater already. And underwater, for those of y'all that don't know, means that you're going to owe more than the home is worth. And I would also add that this is a way to put you into generational debt. Because if you were to buy a house on a 50-year mortgage at age 30, where your income should be a little bit better than it is in your mid-20s, you buy it at age 30, you're in debt until you're 80 to whoever that financed that loan. And chances are they might sell that loan off to somebody else down the line. So on a big picture, if the U.S. decide to have this, or if lenders start to offer a 50-year mortgage, I think it's going to backfire completely. Because if people decide, now all of a sudden that I can afford a home if I take this 50-year mortgage, it's going to make demand on houses cause housing prices to skyrocket. I was telling somebody that that's exactly how that's going to work, and I think it's going to backfire in a way that's going to have some bad consequences. Bad consequences. So that's my take on it. Do y'all think that a 50-year mortgage is something that lenders should offer? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea? And if not, why? Shout out to Proper Like 11 on YouTube, said that that's crazy. Adam said, what was my MOS? I was a 1 Alpha 0 X1, an in-flight refueler. I was a boom operator on the KC-135. Shout out to you, Adam Contreras. Donnie Boy said that it's a setup for failure, and that at this point you might as well buy your own land and build your own house from the ground up. So that right there, Donnie Boy, $69.80 is exactly what I would recommend people to do. If you have the opportunity, it's a longer process, right? Unless you already go and you buy like a prefab home. It's a longer process to do that, but that would be the way that I would recommend somebody go, is to find some land, purchase that land, and then build your own property on it. Yes, it is going to take time. You are also likely going to, the people I know that have done it have been able to do it by using people like family to stay on family property for a bit while their property is being built. And then once it gets through inspections and everything and their property is move-in ready, they go in, boom, and they are good to go. I don't understand why the U.S. is set up the way that it is with these builders and stuff coming onto these lands, buying them, building up these properties, slapping up some crazy sticker prices on it, taking the profits, and then making home ownership so that the average person, it's pretty much out of reach for them. You say, what's stopping you from still paying it off at 30? People aren't going to have the discipline to do that. They're going to see that right there. That is a valid thing. What is going to stop that same person from still saying, ooh, you know what? While I do have a lower payment, let me take extra money and put it towards the principal so that I could pay this thing off faster. A smart person would do that. But I would say that observationally, you're not going to catch a lot of people that are going to be willing to make those extra payments, because the people that will need that 50-year mortgage are the folks that aren't going to have as much income or earnings or access to capital than somebody else would. Because if they did, they wouldn't take a 50-year mortgage option. They would take one that was lower in interest, that they could pay off faster. I could see myself in my 20s, when I was younger and dumber, being somebody that would take that option. That's just me. But I appreciate the comments. This is why I have these morning streams, to have these conversations, because maybe I think about stuff wrong. For example, next thing here, do y'all think that the tariffs and what our administration is doing is going to benefit us in the long run? I'm still not seeing a benefit yet. Where's this so-called benefit that's being passed down to the consumers? Businesses are simply raising their prices and passing on those prices to the consumer. There was talk, and it's just like those Doge payments that were going to come back to the U.S. citizens. That talk ended, and it's like a ghost town, as it hasn't came back up. And our president has floated the idea of passing down the revenue generated from the tariffs down to U.S. citizens. And from what I read, our Treasury Secretary has talked about who would be the people that would qualify for that. Well, it's not me, because I make more than the number that's floated out there. I heard that if you are an American citizen, or I read, my bad, that if you're an American citizen and you're making under $100,000, you would be one of the people that would qualify for this so-called dividend that would be paid out from the tariffs that the U.S. is generating. I make way more than $100,000, so it wouldn't benefit me. But to me, it's one of those things that it gets talked about. It is likely not going to be implemented. I'm not seeing it happen really anytime soon. And what does that do? That's not going to be anything that will stimulate the economy, so to speak. That Joe said, always wanting something given to you. Get ... a ... job. And it is going to be given to citizens who work. LMAO. Look, people, I think it's human nature to accept something that's free. Even if you're wealthy, you're not going to turn down anything that's free. I don't think that giving the money to Americans is a good idea. I don't care what the wealth is. I don't believe it's a good idea. Right now, our government can't balance its own checkbook. I work for the government. Let me just put that out there. I have a very public profile. I'm on LinkedIn. Anybody can go see what I do because my name is unique. If you look up my name, it is a unique name, King Smith, which is actually my name for those of y'all that are new here. Hit the subscribe button, by the way. There's a lot of new faces here. I appreciate the chat. And I don't think our government's doing a good job with the money that we're getting in. Our government really can't figure out a lot of different things if we just had a 43-day government shutdown. I don't think that giving a dividend to Americans is a good idea. There's a lot of, again, everybody's going to have an opinion on what they should do with the money, especially when it's not your money, right? Oh, we should take this money and build it on the infrastructure, or we should invest in XYZ. Everybody's going to have their own opinion on what should be done with that kind of revenue that's coming in. My opinion is we should work on our national debt. How about we knock that down? Let's see. Check out Missy. Am I reading that right? Said, good morning. How was my weekend? Thank you for asking. My weekend was fantastic. Me and my lady ended up going up to New Jersey, which Jersey's a weird state. You can't pump your own gas in Jersey. They do these things called jug hand turns where it's rare that you'll see like a straight up left hand turn. You got to make a right turn just to go left, like do this whole little loop thing. If y'all have ever been to New Jersey, you'll know exactly why I say Jersey is weird. Unless you're from New Jersey, there's no reason to really go to New Jersey. Does Jersey even have beaches? Anyway, let me stop shitting on Jersey. I had a great weekend, though. We ended up going up to New Jersey, spending some time with some friends, politicking, just chopping it up. How was your weekend? See, Donnie Boy said the fact that we went from natural resources trades to consuming currency is crazy. I'm going to have to think a little bit more about what you mean by that. The fact that we went from natural resources trades to consuming currency is crazy. We need to stop depending on the government for real. Everybody as the people. Yes. When Big Daddy government comes in, and is going to provide, what incentive do you have as an individual person to strive and do better on your own? I agree with that 100%. I think it's why we see younger people who, if I know 2 to 3 generations of families that have relied solely on Section 8 housing to live, meaning that they have relied on state and government assistance just to have roofs over their head. I'm talking about grandparent to parent to their child. And that's baffling to me because I'm like, at what point would you want to get out of the projects yourself and have your own place? Why is it that you're relying on government assistance just so that you can have a roof over your head? If you are a unabled person, physically unable, mentally, the clock doesn't go all the way around at the rate that it should, or what's another saying? The elevator doesn't go all the way up to the top. If that's something that describes you as a person, then yes, I can imagine that government assistance would be helpful for you. But if you are a mentally capable and physically able-bodied person, no, especially not for generations. I should not know of or be aware of people that they are the same age as me. They're in government assisted housing, and their children are also in government assisted housing. That's baffling to me. That's baffling to me. Donnie Boy said, currency was invented. Nothing was ever done by money back in the days. Everything was all trades. Okay. So going to a trade system over currency, I'd have to think a little bit more about the repercussions and the impact of that. I think that, all right, hold on. So I'm going to keep this up on the screen. Let's talk through this. Currency was invented. Nothing was ever done by money back in the days. Everything was all trades. In a local setting, right, in your town, in your area, I think that can work. But when you go past your local area, like if I'm going to work primarily between people that are within 2 blocks of me, and within 2 blocks of me, you've got somebody that is the grower, that does produce, that has my gasoline source or whatever energy source that I need for transportation. And I could get all of that done within 2 blocks. And I have something that I can barter with myself to get what I need. I think that could work. But when you go past your local area, you would need something, I think, universal, right? That you can assign value to, that can work on a larger scale. I'd have to think about that more. Because while that can work within my own country, right? If you're an international person, how do you get to where you're going to barter and trade for something in another language? Or I go from here to Germany. What's valuable to me in the US is not going to be valuable to somebody that lives in Germany. And now I've got to carry that extra thing to be able to trade with when I travel from the US to Germany. I don't know how you implement that. What do you think is a better system for us to do? I am a fan of digital currency. I'm a fan of digital currency. I think that you can control digital currency a little bit better. And even as I said that, I was thinking in my head, not really. But I think that you have better traceability. That's the word. Better traceability on digital currency by having control measures in place to where you're not just printing money and printing money and printing money. I think you could have like a finite amount of digital currency and move towards that space. Some people might call me crazy for saying that, but that's just the way that I think. Danny Boy said gold is a natural, valuable resource. But how do we get access? How does the average regular person get access to that gold? That's what I would be curious about. If we were to say, well, let's go to a gold system, how do we get access to that gold? How does every working person get access to that gold and then be able to use that gold to barter and trade. Like, maybe I'm not understanding how that can work. I'm not understanding how that can work. Something needs to change. I don't have the answer as to what that change is, but something needs to change. That's the way that I'm looking at it anyway. Man, you know what? I appreciate these inputs there, Donnie boy, because it gives me something to think about. It gives me something to think about. And it's also these discussions, right, where people are providing their inputs and things. It is allowing folks to have a discussion, maybe get somebody that is smart and in a position that be able to ask the same questions to see if we can come up with some type of a system that works out better for everybody. That's the other part too, is getting people on the same page, because when you do look at trying to implement a change, there's going to be winners and losers to that, to whatever that change process is. And anytime there's any kind of change, you're going to see resistance at any level, especially when there's going to be people that are going to lose to it. Those that are benefiting from a current system set up now, they're not going to want to see some type of change to anything, especially when you consider there could be profits lost from it. Like the way that we were trying to change our cars to make cars more electric. Who lose from that? The people that are in the gas and oil industry. And so while people that were looking at electric cars were lobbying to our lawmakers to push more towards electric vehicles because that'll be safer on the environment long term, you got gas and oil going, hold up. No. We don't need that. We don't need that. Bring that back. Hold up. And now we're starting to see there aren't as many as electric cars being manufactured as the prior administration was trying to push. The infrastructure for electric cars are a little bit better. The person who I rent from has an electric car. The concept of it, I think, works. But we'll never see us fully go to an electric car system, even if we had the broader infrastructure there, because people just you have the gas and oil industries way too large to be taken down, plain and simple. It won't happen. I think personally that the way that the electric cars are being manufactured and made now, they work. They work. It is a little bit different with your personal planning when you're going out and traveling, right? You got to make sure that you've got enough range on your electric vehicle to be able to take you from point A to point B. And if you're taking a long trip, I've never taken a long trip with an electrical vehicle yet. I like driving. For those of y'all that don't know me, I love driving. Love driving. I've taken trips from where I live down to Florida a couple of times. I love driving, love being on the road. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing in IT now for the government, I would likely be a truck driver, an over-the-road truck driver. I just like the road. There's a lot to see and explore out there. But if you're using an electrical vehicle, you really got to plan your trip a lot better than you do if you're taking a car that's going on gasoline. Donnie Boy said, if you ask me, when it all comes down to it, I'm choosing these or gas over electrical vehicles. And that it's just something about all of this that I ain't taking a chance, especially during a blackout. Pros and cons to everything. A big ass con is that if there's some type of electrical grid incident or a blackout, you stuck like Chuck. Absolutely. Oh, and said, I'm choosing diesel or gas over electric. You know, sometimes I do try to read in between the lines, but we're trying to do it live. You might not catch it, but yes, I got you right there on that typo. Said I'm choosing diesel over gas. Man, look. Yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. I think that I'm with you. I would prefer to have a diesel or gasoline vehicle over an electrical vehicle. You can say that over time, an electric vehicle, the cost of ownership, the total cost of ownership, maintenance, all of that jazz over time can be a lot less if you have an electric vehicle over a diesel or gasoline. There's trade-offs. That's my favorite word, y'all. Trade-offs. When you make a decision, you have to understand the pros, the cons, and the trade-offs to every decision that you make. And if you can think through those trade-offs, then you can make the best decision that works for you. I've got a daughter that's in college, and as I'm teaching her about life things, that's one of the things that I'm talking about all of the time. Every decision that you make has a trade-off. Everything that you want to buy, or if you're looking at the difference between purchasing this thing or that thing, there is a trade-off that comes along with that. If you understand what that trade-off is, you'll be able to make a decision that works for you over the long term that you are not going to regret. But that's my live stream today. This is Wake Up with the Actual King Smith. I saw some new names in the chat, so I want to say thank y'all to come in. Thank y'all for coming in and contributing to the conversation and adding to the morning chat here today. I normally go from 6:45 to about 7:20, as I do have a normal 9 to 5. My 9 to 5, if I was working this week, would start at 7:30, but I've taken this week off because I'm taking an IT certification called the CompTIA Security Plus exam, and I wanted to have extra time to study before I take the exam on Thursday. Even though I have the exam, I'm still looking at doing my morning live streams. These morning live streams are going to be about random topics, so I never really necessarily plan out what my topics are until I'm about to go live. There's a question in the chat before I end. It says, have you ever seen Leave the World Behind by Barack Obama and Michelle Obama? That's the reason why I don't trust electric cars. No, I have not seen that, but let me take a picture of that. Let me take a picture of that comment. Give me 1 second. Leave the World Behind. All right, I got a picture of that. Hold on, let me do this one too. That way I can take a note to check it out. I whenever somebody recommends something to me, whether it's a book or to check out something, I actually go and check it out. So I'm gonna look at that. Leave the World Behind by the Obamas. Have you ever met the Obamas? That question that people ask, if there's anybody that you could meet, dead or alive, who would you meet? I would like to meet Barack Obama. First of all, and this is a small anecdotal thing, we've got the same birth month and birthday, August 4th. I think that he's a very interesting guy, and I would love to just sit down and have a conversation with him. So, Barry, Mr. Obama, El Presidente, if for some reason you ever see this and you want to have a conversation with Lilo, the actual King Smith, man, somebody set that up. Somebody set that up. I would love to be able to chop it up with him. And he said, is this something too fishy about it and the prices are too low? There's something that's too fishy about it and the prices are too low. And that you haven't met President Obama or Barack Obama. I like to meet him. I think he's an interesting dude. I think he is a interesting dude. I think that to get to where he got, the way that he got there, is something that is magnificent. You know, he's got a pretty cool story, and in my opinion, is exactly what the American dream is all about, right? The American dream's not dead, in my opinion. There is a whole lot that's trying to stifle the American dream, but the American dream is not dead. Sidebar, and I'm probably going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow. The deportations that are happening has impacted some people that I know locally here. I don't know them really that well per se, but I do know of a family that is impacted. They got detained and they're looking at getting deported back to the country that they're from. And it's interesting. People talked about how when, speaking of President Obama, when he was president, he had the nickname of Deporter in Chief. And when you take a look at the impact and the, how do I say this, the types of people that were deported, I'm not sure we're seeing, or maybe the media just didn't talk about it as much. So maybe the average everyday person didn't really catch it, but it didn't seem like it was this in your face when it comes to the deportations during this administration than it did when President Barack Obama was president from 2008 to 2016. But I think that the way that the media is highlighting this stuff now is contributing to the way that our nation thinks about the deportations and the type of people that are being deported. If you are somebody that you've committed a bunch of crimes while you're here and you're on a U.S. citizen, then I would say, why stay here? I understand that there's a naturalization process and a citizen process that you have to do, and I'm not against the way that our current laws are set up, not fully anyway. There are several laws that I don't agree with, right? I don't think universally people can just sit back and accept laws the way that they are. But while we are in the land of the free and the home of the brave, I do think that the opportunities that are afforded to people here should be taken advantage of. I think that we have people that are here that don't truly understand the freedoms. And I'm saying freedoms because you can have people attempt to try to step on your freedoms 24/7, especially those that wear badges. But when you really understand the freedoms that you have here, then you are somebody that takes advantage of that, and you don't let that type of stuff go to waste. I've been around the world, literally, because of my military profession, have been around the world. I was an enlisted aviator, and I've seen how other places live. We've got it good here. We need to try to get people in places that won't F that up for everybody else, though. But I've got to bounce, and as I want to still be mindful, even though I'm off the rest of this week, so that I can study. I want to be mindful of that time so that I don't get used to going over. Thank y'all for tuning in. To the people that commented, I appreciate you commenting. Jay, what's up, man? I got a viewer all the way from Germany who has hit the like button on the stream. I can see that from my side. So I want to give Jay a salute from me to you all the way in Germany. Donnie boy, I appreciate you popping in. I do this every morning on Mondays through Fridays, man. So if you got time, come back around and chop it up with me tomorrow. Everybody else, y'all take care. I'm the actual King Smith. Peace.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Trumpets blare the golden call. A throne awaits, I rise so tall. Drums like thunder, shake the hall. Royal rope, I wear the weight. Diamonds cut the night, no debate. Heavy is the head, but I'm feeling great. Crown me